This is an open letter for Jon Stewart. Hello, sir. How are you? Hopefully, everything is fine. I was wondering that when are you going to start admitting that maybe democracy is not for us. Not maybe democracy is not a good idea. Period. When this is going to happen, I'm still waiting because, you are adamantly stuck on democracy, although all the evidence points to it's hazardous democracy. It's evil, you can say. Look at the countries that have had democracy and how many of them have been involved in offensive wars, as opposed to countries that haven't had democracy and how they have been doing. Let's look at the figures. We understand monarchy was bad. Monarchy is bad. Monarchy is basically the richest man in the land, which usually ends up to be the most antisocial, psychopathic person. The richest person in the land becomes the monarch. That's usually the case. The guy who can put together the biggest army is usually the richest guy, or has the backing of other rich people like himself. So he becomes a monarch, and then you have a bunch of lords and lordesses around him, and they rule the land. But the monarch is understood has to be the richest guy, and that's why that MBS squeezed money out of all the wealthy people at the top of the Saudi land, squeezed them in order to put all the money together, so he, as the monarch or as the placeholder for the monarch, become the richest man. You can't have monarch not being the richest man in the land. It just doesn't work. So monarchy, we know, is bad because the richest man in the land, usually the asshole in the land, becomes the monarch, or the asshole family becomes the monarch, as you can see in England, the fucking British with their shit show. So monarchy is bad, but this democracy clearly doesn't work, because again, what you get is rich people deciding who will rule. And whether it be, at the beginning of your democracy, in which the big landlords gave themselves the right to vote and choose the leaders, in which 70-80% of the population were totally disregarded, not counted, to these hanky-panky business that they do with counting people, census, and then gerrymandering, and all these things, is because rich people want to be in charge of picking who will become leader. So, and you've seen it over and over. Every time you practice this European half-assed form of government, every time, everywhere you practice it, you saw it falling apart eventually, due to incompetence, due to malice, due to incompetence, and every time ending up with not even one Caesar, multiple Caesar, making the situation of their people even worse and worse and worse and worse, eventually until the day the Huns arrive, or an internal conflict or an external conflict blows the whole fucking thing apart. The Civil War was an example that United States could have fallen apart and become multiple countries after the Civil War or during the Civil War, because of the Civil War. And 500,000 people at that time, it's a lot of people. 500,000 people died in order to keep it one. that's the richest group, one group of rich people, not the southern rich people lost and the northern rich people won, because though they were farmers and these guys were industrialists, so industrialists, it was their time, so the industrialists won. The rest of it is bullshit. The industrialist rich people won over the farming rich people. And then they got the right to choose the leaders. So the northerners who won, the northern rich people, not poor people, the northern rich people who won the Civil War in the United States got to pick their representatives and rule. This happens every time. Democracy in a backdoor way of letting the rich people continue to rule as if they were ruling with the help of a monarch by buying politicians and gerrymandering and doing anything they can in order to win. Now, some of these rich people are straight, some of them are gay. In your current iterations of democracy, the gay rich people are Democratic and the straight rich people are Republican. Fuck. But nevertheless, you have seen it time and time, over and over and again in history, that every time may start well at the beginning because they're intelligent people started, but always ends bad because every time this is the same problem. Every time they come up against the same problem because the rich people start rigging the election, so the competent leaders are not elected, but the leaders who are owned or take orders from rich people do get elected, because rich people want the rules to be in their favor, as simple as that. And every time the populace is coerced or pushed or enticed with new and beautiful messages, every time the core of the population is enticed, coerced, feared, intimidated by the fear of the others. The Taliban are coming. By creating fear and against others and creating these environments, however they can, the rich people force the population to vote the way they want. And it would be even better if they own both sides of the aisle, which they do, which eventually in every one of these systems that you call democratic, it ends up the same way. The rich people both own both sides of the aisle. It's the same right now. It's the same way it has been in the fucking between the fucking British, because the king and his people own the fucking government, and the so-called representatives, they're pushed on the public. It's all about the message stays the same, we just change the horse. Let's see these public, who they like better, whose face they like better, whose smile they like better, whose attitude, whose complexion, whose color they like better. Let them vote. Let them vote for that person, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because all of these colors and complexions and genders and all of them work for us, i.e. JP Morgan Chase, or in case of England, the fucking royal family and all the dukes and duchesses that own the fucking island. When are you going to say no? Maybe democracy is not what it's all made up to be, because every time it ends up in a revolution, and it ends up either in a revolution or in a monarchy, or every time there is, a Caesar-like figure take. I mean, come on, two striking examples are the Caesar himself and Hitler, and I believe Mussolini also he was an elected leader. These are all elected leaders. Churchill, as far as some things I've read about him, he was a nut job. He was a bloodthirsty colonialist pig. The guy who you keep blowing hot air up its ass, he was a nut job. He could have prevented the German war, but he wanted, just like Keir Starmer right now wants a war with Russia. Apparently they're okay with nuclear war. Salute. This is the thing, sir. Mr. Jon Stewart, you may want to look into other forms of government, especially when you see that most of the bloodshed in recent times has been caused by these democratic governments, so-called democrat. Before, it was caused by all the European monarchs, caused all the bloodshed all over the world, Africa and Asia and Americas and all over, and even inside Europe. And now these democracies, so-called democracies, which basically puts in the representatives of rich people in charge, have been responsible for so much bloodshed around the world. Yours being the biggest one. 270 years of republic and 260 years of it being in offensive wars, whether it be with regards to Mexico and Canada, which apparently we have come full circle. It's sort of like it goes around the world and attacks. I mean, if you have a system of government that keeps going around the world and attacks until at one point it reaches a full circle and says, okay, it's time to attack the neighbors now. We went all the way, we started from Korea and Vietnam, and we went to South Asia, and then we went to Africa, and we went back to Middle East, and now we are in Ukraine, started one in Ukraine, and now it's time to back home. Let's start a war with Canada and Mexico. Do you see that? Do you see you have gone full circle? You started this, your democracy started the wars with the neighbors. And again, it's a democracy, you call it democracy, okay. It's a system in which the rich people choose the leader, and that means the rich people, right now, rich people want their leader to attack Canada, so take over Canada and Greenland and Mexico to take over their natural resources. Maybe not Mexico. Attack Canada and Greenland and put pressure on Canada and Greenland so we can get more of their natural resources. Average, the Joe Sixpacks is not, salivating over the Canadian resources, but JP Morgan Chase and BlackRock are salivating. I think that's the right word. A lot of excretion coming out of their mouth. They just can't control themselves. It's all slobbering all over the place because they're salivating over all the natural resources that there's a possibility they can get their hand on by owning Canada and Greenland. They tried to own Vietnam and Korea. They still own some parts of Korea. Malaysia, Indonesia, Afghanistan, Iraq, minerals of Ukraine, and back home, let's see and Panama, and now what we can do. These are all rich people ideas. Poor people are just minding their own business, doing their own little jobs to get by. It's just the rich people represented by your rich corporations in this democracy who want to open up these countries and own them. Not trade with them, own them. They're trading with Canada. Apparently that's not enough. We need to own you. Just like we own Afghanistan and Iraq and we want to own Iran. Just like we own Syria and Egypt and Jordan. We want to own you. I'm sorry, this is democracy? Oh, thank you very much. Maybe, Mr. Jon Stewart, maybe you should look into other forms of government. This is not working. Never worked. A democracy never worked. Neither did monarchy. Just like monarchy, democracy showed that eventually it's going to go towards monarchy. Democracy eventually is going to... Eventually rich people are tired of paying for politicians to be chosen. Eventually rich people will step in themselves. You see Mr. Trump, I understand Mr. Zuckerberg had some thought about running for a powerful seat himself, presidency I guess. Eventually, Musk, eventually rich people get tired of these politicians that they have chosen, not giving it 100% to their benefit. Eventually the rich people say, fuck the politician, I know how to protect my own interest, and they push the politician out of the way and they get involved themselves. Caesar, like. That's what happens. I mean, even Joe Biden was a kind of Caesar. He has made millions of dollars. Nancy Pelosi, through his political career, he has made millions of dollars, so he is one of the rich men. Maybe not as rich as Donald Trump, maybe not as rich as Elon Musk, maybe not as rich as Mark Zuckerberg, but rich nevertheless, who also, whatever laws protect the rich people, protects his rights as well, because now he's moved to the upper echelons of economic classes. So my point is this, that you see it doesn't work. It never has worked. Will never work. Solution is simple. Look around, see who has a better system, who has a more stable system, who hasn't attacked any country around it for a very long time. They must be having a good system. Maybe you should adopt the Chinese system, not the communist part. The part that the political class is separate from the economic class. The rich people have no say in the political direction of the country. Rich people, they do their thing, and you want to create and build and do whatever the fuck you want, go right ahead. The political class has, is happy with you as long as, you stay in your lane and just create. Don't try to influence politics. Political class becomes a bunch of intellectuals. I mean, fuck, look at the Iranian model, Mr. Jon Stewart. It's not a joke, but as a joke, not a joke, maybe a joke. If you don't want to follow the Chinese model, the Iranian model. These motherfuckers, although the white people have been trying to create chaos and confusion in Iran for past 40 years, 50 years, they haven't been successful. Then these motherfuckers must be doing something right. If under sanctions and embargoes and wars and attacks and bombings, if they have survived, they have been able to provide a steady, more or less steady, under sanctions, 40, 50 years of sanctions, if they have been able to provide a secure and stable environment, more or less, then they must be doing their system must be doing something right. What is their system? Mr. Jon Stewart, their system is basically the main system, the main holders of power. There is a guardian council that's like 12 really old people, old from backgrounds of not business, but backgrounds of whether it's religious, really top clerics, old top clerics, or academia, regular old people from the sciences. This makes up from the universities. This makes up the guardian council. some really white bearded people who, yeah, they're going to be very conservative. But I'd rather be conservative and stable and not to be attacking a new country every other Wednesday than be progressive and attack a new country every Wednesday. You know, just to set them free and bring them democracy and capitalism and whatever works for the time, whatever works. Prevent nuclear weapons, bring nuclear weapons. The same people who are providing nuclear weapons to Australia because they're white, trying to prevent nuclear weapons from reaching the hands of these brown people by bombing them. Sort of like nuclear weapons are bad only in the hands of those who are not white. If they're white, nuclear weapons are fine. Do you see the problem here? Because rich people who run the world right now are white. They run these politicians. The white rich people want to stay on top, cheap dominance over planet Earth. White rich people want to keep dominance over planet Earth, so they who choose these politicians, they encourage these politicians to dominate and subdue and subjugate all those other countries that haven't been subjugated and dominated and subdued. And usually those are not, they don't have any problem with Australia because, you know, Australia does business with JP Morgan. Everyone in Australia eventually through other banks ends up working with Lloyd's of London and JP Morgan Chase. Ends up being owned by BlackRock or Goldman Sachs. This is the problem. If Goldman Sachs and just like President Trump, I love the fact that he plays his hand quite open. He literally tells Zelensky that if you're willing to give me your country, whatever is remaining of your country, I may decide to defend it. So basically, that's the whole idea. If we own it, we may allow at least some kind of peace on it. But if we don't own it, unfortunately, you're going to be destroyed through war. Either we're going to bomb you or we're going to provide bombs to somebody else to bomb you. We have to own you. This is the message. This is the message of democracy, which is exactly the same message that monarchies in Europe had for the rest of the world. We need to own you. The monarchies of Europe had the same message for the rest of the planet Earth as these democracies have. So how come the message is the same? The message has remained the same, whether monarchy or democracy. How come is it the message is the same? We want to own you. Then if the message is the same, then apparently the systems are the same. You think you have a democracy, but you still have a monarchy. The top politicians may not be the monarch, but they're owned by the monarchs, by the dukes and duchesses. You know, they're owned by Mars family and Walton family and Musk family and Bezos family. They're owned by them. What's the use? They're still following their policies. Just like the monarch follows the policies that benefits the monarch's family as well as all those dukes and duchesses. The big landowners. So you haven't changed much with this democracy business. Seriously, look at the Iranian model. Conservative, yes, their system is going to be very conservative. Slowly, it's going to change very slowly. It is going to remain conservative and slowly, very slow change over time. But that's not a bad thing. A slow changing system is really not a bad thing. Because, you know, it allows people time to adjust. This business of suddenly everybody's transgender, we got into this mess because everybody left the economic message because rich people were not happy about sharing money, but they were happy with allowing poor people to become transgender. So more for me. I used to only fuck the, poor little girls. Now I get to fuck poor little boys as well. And that's the whole idea of rich people. It's sort of like, that doesn't matter. As long as you don't talk about my money, I'm fine. You go turn your girls into boys and boys into girls, no problem. I fuck all of them on Epstein's Island. No problem. More for me. Are you fucking kidding me, Mr. Stewart? Democracy doesn't work. You've seen it over and over and over again. Eventually, the rich people will find a crack, put in the thin end of the wedge, and start pushing. Eventually, the rich people will find a crack, put in the thin end of the wedge, and start pushing in every democracy until they get their way, until they break it open and they own both sides. How many times you have to try this to figure out, no, this thing doesn't work? Solution? Start searching for a better system. Start searching that literally puts rich people out of the picture totally. So, okay, this is the political class, this is the intellectual class. From between these, we pick some white bearded ones. When I say white beard, I mean really old people who, who didn't start their life in politics or didn't start their life going for money. Those people, academic people, you can find them in universities, really old academic people. They have, you can be pretty sure that they are not, if they are given a position of power, i.e. a position to choose a leader, the leaders, they're not going to be, very, let's just say you can manipulate them by providing them more pussy. A 75-year-old guy who's spent most of his life and in a back room in his office in a university teaching students and doing research, he's not going to be prone to bribing and manipulation and any of that. And that's exactly what you want. Look at it. Forget about Iran. That the Guardian Council picks the leader. Those old farts choose a wise leader, either from between them or from available candidates. Forget about that. Look at Vatican. A stable system. How does Vatican choose a leader? I don't know, 100, 200, whatever cardinals go in. They have a closed vote, and in order to reach a cardinal stage, you have to, you have to have a certain level of education, certain level of world experience. You can call them as elders. Elders of the tribe get to choose who will be the next pope. So 9 out of 10 times they're not wrong. But can you say 9 out of your 10 last presidents were not wrong? I believe 9 out of your 10 presidents were wrong. I don't know which one was right, but 9 out of 10 were bad. Bad in terms of lack of experience, hot-headedness, lack of knowledge, uninformed, unworthy. Do you think a group of elders of any tribe would be so foolish to make so many mistakes, to pick 9 out of 10 lemons? Do you think the elders of a tribe can be so stupid to pick lemons over and over and over and over again, just like the people in your democracy has been forced to choose lemon over and over. If you get a normal president, that's a hooray. That's unheard of. It's like you keep getting lemon after lemon after lemon. Look, I mean, you think if Harris was won, it would have been any better? Are you fucking kidding me? If Biden was, you think he wasn't a lemon? I don't think Obama was any better either. He also old people, and he was young, and he had, you know, he still had ideas for his future, and he didn't want to piss these rich people off or those rich people off, or else you would have a public option 100 years ago, public option for health. It's just that it doesn't work when your leaders are chosen by rich people. It just doesn't work. It's like you still have monarchy. It's just that the politician now is sort of like a busboy of rich people, as opposed to when there was a monarch. The monarch itself, the ruler itself, was one of the rich people. Now your rulers are a busboy for rich people. Are you fucking kidding me? And you think the system works? Salute. And don't tell me that there is a way we can make this democracy work. Nope. As I said, rich people have nothing to do all day long except sit around and plot and plan. Like, you know, Mrs. Musk's book, A Woman Makes a Plan. That's what rich people do. They have nothing else to do, so all day long they sit, plot and plan. And rich people plot and plan until they find a crack in your democracy, put in a thin end of the wedge, and start pushing and see what they can get away with. Your democracy right now is supporting, you know, mass murder in West Asia, just like they supported a mass murder in East Asia at the time of Vietnam. They started financing, you know, some crazy people in Ukraine, the Azov battalions. Some crazy racist people got financing from your democratic system in order to start harassing and killing and bothering the Russians who are living in Ukraine, in order to turn Ukraine to the West, so the West can, you know, when I say West, I mean BlackRock and Goldman Sachs can own Ukraine. If it has skipped your mind why they want Ukraine part of the West, there is no West. Joe Sixpack doesn't benefit from NATO or Ukraine or anything of that sort. Let's kid ourselves. There is no West. There is rich people in the West and poor people everywhere else. In the West, in the East, the rest of us is just, you know, casualty of the rich people in the West. Collateral damage. In the West, the collateral damage is jam-packed in jails. You know, the poor people who can't make ends meet, they turn to crime to make ends meet, and they're jam-packed in jails because the rich people, you know, don't accept that maybe some of their money should be going towards these people, so they wouldn't be so frustrated with their economic situation that they turn into crime. So they suppress their own population by jamming them in jail, and they suppress other populations by actually, you know, bombing them, droning them, shooting them. This is your democracy, Mr. Jon Stewart. It has been the same way since the beginning. as I said, 260 of 270 years of existence as a republic has been at offensive wars. And as I said at the beginning, you keep going around the world and coming back to the same spot. Start from the neighbors and push the neighbors back and grab their land, and then go around the world and do the same over and over again until you reach back home. Because BlackRock and Goldman Sachs appetite is, I believe the word is insatiable, or it is what it is. Rich people want more always. More is always better. Please, do what Vatican is doing. It shows it has been stable for many years, thousands of years. They have been running a stable system. Yes, they have had their abuses. Yes, they had their shit. But the whole idea of picking the elders of the tribe in an orderly fashion, those elders who have kissed the worldly goods goodbye through their action, they have killed through their action, or because of their age, they are no longer concerned with the worldly goods. They are in a position to choose a leader for the tribe. This is a system that works. Vatican does it, China does it, Iran does it, and more or less you can say, although United States, the democratic one, has been trying to overthrow all of them for a very long time, but still haven't been successful. Russia, Mr. Jon Stewart, Russia is doing fine, thank you very much. Yes, the guy on top is a killer, no question about that. But is Russia stable? Yes. Was Russia quiet, sitting back, doing its thing before the Azov battalion, the neo-Nazis, but with financing from Victoria Nuland and Mrs. Clinton and the democratic United States, until they weren't those racist neo-Nazis didn't start harassing and killing the Russians in Ukraine and trying to bring Ukraine to Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, until the neo-Nazis didn't start doing that. The Russians were quiet and minding their own business. They were okay with just having an influence in Ukraine, which is their right to have, because it's a neighbor. Ukraine also had some influence in Russia. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Two neighbors, but as long as, the smaller neighbors understand who's the bigger guy, as long as, the balance of power is understood, everything works fine. And a couple of million Ukrainians were alive. But no, you democratic ones go in and coax those guys to reach for their freedom, those crazy guys in Ukraine, to reach for their freedom on the pretext of having freedom of choice. They want to give Ukraine, the democratic system in the West wants to give Ukraine to BlackRock and Goldman Sachs, or at least its minerals and its land, not its people. Let's get its people killed so the land can go to BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. And please don't tell me, Jon Stewart, you don't understand where this is going. The same BlackRock and Goldman Sachs who chooses these politicians in the democratic West is the same one is going to benefit from what remains of Ukraine. As Mr. Trump was about to clearly said that sign your land and hand it over if you want me to at least stop killing your people, stop facilitating the killing of your people. And no, this is, again, Russia is not the problem, sir, Mr. Jon Stewart. Russia is not the problem. Putin didn't go for a war for 20, 30 years now. How long he's been in power? He's not Putin. He's been chosen by a group of Russian elders. We don't know their name because apparently their name is not important for us, for them to be known. They don't want people to know them, but you can be sure that a group of elders, very intelligent elders, are behind Putin, Russian elders. End of story. No propaganda. If they weren't, he wouldn't be in charge. Some wise men are fronting Putin, or Putin is fronting some wise men. A group of elders have chosen him, just like a group of elders in China have chosen the council, and the council has chosen Xi. Just like in Iran, the fucker Khamenei is chosen by a group of elders. And so what if it's conservative? So what? Anybody who doesn't like it leaves. But the reality is 90% of people are okay with it. How many Russians do you know who have been running out of Russia for past 20-30 years? There was a time during Yeltsin, the one that you like, the one that was democratic. During his time, a lot of Russians ran away because, again, democracy doesn't work. Since Putin has come, you have stability and security, and very few Russians have left Russia because of economic reasons and social reasons. Who cares who's in charge? If I got security and stability, I really don't care who's in charge. How do I get security and stability? Is because if a group of elders choose an elder, wise elder, to lead the fucking system. Keep saying democracy is the best, but you sitting in a democracy is the one that has shed the most blood for the least cause during the past 100 years at least. Are you kidding me? No, we just have to make democracy work. It doesn't. The rich people will find the crack. Salute. You know which crack you can't find? What doesn't have a crack is a group of elders who, it's past their youth. They don't like to strive for any more money or accolades or any more. You can't buy them with pussy. I mean, look at Mrs. Clinton. You should have seen that video. You probably have seen it. That video in which she received some accolades from, Oxford or Cambridge or one of these two. Gave, after, she was the architect of Ukraine and Iraq and a lot of shit she was the architect of, and they just gave her an honorary doctorate. And you should have seen, had a smile on her face. It was just a smile. You couldn't see the face. It was just teeth. That's what she's after. Recognition, accolades. Who gives the recognition and accolades? A bunch of rich people. I'm sorry, Mr. Jon Stewart, but please look into other forms of government, other ways of choosing leaders for the tribe, because this way that you have chosen, it has shown historically that not very dependable. Eventually the rich will find the cracks in it. Salute.